Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so there's husband. Say hi, husband.
Hello.
Okay, so I want to take you through all of the things IVF, and the recruiter in me is going to come out because I think it's very important for all of us to understand that while cash is extremely important, no one is saying that it's not. It is very important. I also think that part of what's important when you're thinking about your next role is determining what your non-cash benefits are that's going to help sustain your lifestyle. So, at the very beginning, when Terrence and I both worked for Duke, and I officially went from a contractor being converted into a full-time employee, we started going to the doctor to figure out why we weren't getting pregnant. I don't have bromocriptine here with me, but I went to the doctor, and the doctor determined that my levels, I forgot what it's called, but my levels were too high. And I also wasn't ovulating. So what happened was, so I had to pull them in. So I wasn't ovulating, and my doctor was trying to figure out why. So she had me take some medicine because I was having irregular periods. From there, once I took some medicine, my period started coming back normally, and this is after coming off of birth control because we didn't really want to get pregnant immediately after getting married, but we eventually started having unprotected sex almost immediately after we got married. So I wasn't ovulating. I had to take some medicine to ovulate, and she also wanted me to go for an MRI to determine what was going on with my prolactin. That's what it was, my prolactin levels. And so I went to get an MRI, and the doctor determined that I had a tumor that was on my pituitary gland, which sits behind your nose. And she asked me if I was having like regular headaches and all the things, and I said yeah, and I attributed those headaches to like I was having neck pain because I was just driving a lot, recruiting a lot, so I was doing so many different things. And I was sedentary. And so because I was sedentary, there were times where I would get really, really stiff, which meant my neck got stiff. I had headaches and all the things. So I asked her if we could remove the tumor. She said that since the tumor wasn't bothering anything, she didn't want to go in and remove it because then she didn't want more complications, and this tumor is in my head and it is still there. So I had to take bromocriptine to shrink the tumor. I don't have bromocriptine here because it is expired and I threw it all away. So I had to take bromocriptine. After taking bromocriptine, I went back for another MRI and my tumor shrank. I continued on bromocriptine. I went back for my third MRI and my tumor shrunk. So the videos that you saw when I was sitting in what looked like just a hospital chair, that's when, and I had all the IVs in me that was very traumatizing. That's when I was going in for my MRI because I had to have it with a culture, I think it's called, or with something where you have to have a needle to do it and have an MRI. I mean, the IV, I forgot what it's called, but it's with something. It starts with a C. Anywho, so my tumor shrunk, and she presented cabergoline to me. So cabergoline is a very small pill, a very small white pill, and the study showed that cabergoline had a better success rate of helping people get pregnant than bromocriptine. The problem was that cabergoline was newer and bromocriptine had more research behind it. So she asked me if I wanted to switch to cabergoline, and I said yeah. So I stopped taking bromocriptine and switched over to cabergoline. Cabergoline didn't work. So I was taking cabergoline for maybe about a year or two, and we still weren't pregnant. My doctor then left Duke. So then I had to, and this was my endocrinologist. So then I had to determine, okay, what's next? Now, this is starting in like 2021, and throughout the years, it was back and forth between what do I want to do next? What are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out? All the things. And it was really on me because I had the one that had to take the medicine. I was the one who had the tumor. It was me. I was the one with all the things. But then I was also the one that had to overcome the fear of needles.
She loves needles.
I hate needles. So it took me some time to actually finally like get there. And every time Terrence and I would have sex, our hope was that this was the time when I was ovulating that we were going to get pregnant and we were going to conceive, and it did not happen.
There was times we were like, you were late, and we were like, okay, it's getting like 2 days now, 3 days now.
We would count the late days.
Yeah. Excited about being late.
Very much excited. I was very excited about being late in my period, and I would still come on. So for women who deal with that every month, for those of you who are watching this and you feel like you're constantly checking the calendar and the time, and is this going to happen? Is this the time that it's going to happen? And with every passing birthday and Mother's Day and year, and you hope and pray that this is going to be the time, trust me, we get it. Mm-hmm. So after overcoming, all right, listen, I am going to go back to the doctor and figure out what I need to do. Now, for those of you who don't know me personally, Terrence is the only man I have ever been with in this way. Meaning, if you need me to say it, I waited until I was married to fully have sex. I had never been with another man in that way before. Now, let me be very clear. Nobody's ever fully innocent. But I had never gone all the way and had never done it. So Terrence was the first person that I had sex with. And we both, let me be very clear, we both got tested. And when the doctor determined it was me, that was a very hard thing for me to accept, because spiritually, I was just like, God, I did everything right that I was supposed to do. In your eyes, why is it so difficult for me to do this? And so I went through that for a couple years. And then I settled on the fact that I think God is trying to get me to understand that this journey is not just for me, but it's to help people understand and know that he could do all things. Like, all things. Okay? All right. So I have now accepted. I have to possibly go through IVF. What are my next steps? Because you never think it's going to be you that have to go through IVF. So I have accepted. I need to go through IVF. What are the steps that I have to take? So about maybe mid-2024, at the end of 2024 or so, I was having really hard time at work. And this was ongoing for a few years. I was dealing with a lot mentally at work. And I got to a point where I needed to take a mental health break. Like, it was that bad. Like, work in the environment was that bad that I started to have to take a mental health break. And I was officially diagnosed by my therapist with workplace PTSD. When I learned that I was diagnosed with workplace PTSD and I went on a mental health leave, I knew if I am to get pregnant during this time, I'm not going to be a good mom because I'm dealing with too much at work mentally. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to sustain a life and a full-term pregnancy being under the stress that I was under every single day. And it wasn't just on the clock. I was being watched on the clock and in my personal life, which was extremely weird. Yeah. So, go ahead. You want to say something?
Oh, no. I was just saying, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I took a mental health leave for about 7.5 weeks. And during that time, Terrence and I had a few conversations about, okay, are we going to move forward with this in 2025? And we both said yes. So when we went back to the doctor, by then I had already connected with my now fertility doctor, and shout out to Dr. Sarah Mustafa, amazing, her entire team, amazing, awesome. Nurse Janelle, Nurse Mary, all of y'all, great. Crew. And so I had already connected with my healthcare team, and so I found out that I needed to have an HSG because I had a polyp inside of my uterus, which means that the doctor pretty much wanted to tell you that if you have a polyp inside of your uterus, if you get pregnant naturally and there's a polyp there, the baby or the embryo will see the polyp and think, there is already something here. I am not supposed to be here. And that's how a miscarriage can happen quickly. So I had to get this small polyp removed. So that was the first procedure that I had to do. It's called an HSG that I had to have, and then had to have the procedure to get that removed. After that, Terrence had to go through a series of tests, but the wait was getting to the doctor.
Yes.
It took
weeks, months.
No, it was months. Yeah. It took, by the time I had my HSG and my removal surgery in January of 2025. And this was literally, the HSG was when I was on my mental health leave. The removal, I was only back at work like 2 weeks before I had to go out one more day to have the removal procedure done. It took us from January to July to get to the doctor in 2025, which was hard. It was a hard wait because I couldn't understand, like, the healthcare system I get, there are millions of people in the world who need healthcare. I just didn't understand why it took so long.
Yeah, even for like a 5-10 minute visit, when they just looking at your chart, okay, now you're in this stage now you get to do whatever have you do. But to wait that long just for a 10-minute visit was kind of stressful at the time.
Yeah. So, but we waited, we were patient, we were prayerful, all the things. Unfortunately, in February of 2025, February 10th, 2025, at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I'll never forget that because I'll always remember how I felt. I had to leave my job, which meant I also had to leave my full fertility benefits behind. When I found out I had to leave my job, the first thing that came to mind was, what am I going to do about my healthcare benefits? Like, that my fertility benefits was the first thing that came to mind. The money, God got me, I'm good on that. My question was, fertility benefits, how are we going to do this?
Can I go into detail about that?
Yeah, please.
So, like, even during that period, knowing that the benefits are very beneficial to us, the company also knew, like, pretty much our leadership knew that she was going through this fertility journey, right? So during this time, she was going through a lot with, like, I guess harassment, I would call it, and pretty much giving her a hard time, even though she was a top performing recruiter on her team and other team as well too, when they compared her numbers. But eventually they let her go off of BS, pretty much.
And he's still mad about that.
If you
can't hear, okay, enough.
Yeah.
He's still mad about that. And to be quite frank, I understand the anger because so many people who look like us are dealing with the same exact thing. What I learned, though, is while a lot of us who are Black, I'm going to be very clear, who are Black, experience workplaces like that that are very toxic, and it's the leadership,
poor leadership,
right? It's the leadership, and it's leaders pinning individual contributors against each other. I think what can also be true is it is also people who don't look like us. So my former colleagues also experienced toxic work environments who didn't look like me. And so what I experienced was a bunch of Black people who was experiencing what I was experiencing at different companies, but it was also people who weren't Black or who weren't brown who was experiencing something similar. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is all of our unique experiences are going to be exactly that, unique. Yeah. So he watched me go through that, and I had to constantly say, I would not have been able to sustain growing a baby inside of my womb in that environment. Yeah. So, fertility benefits are gone at this point. February 10th, February 11th at midnight at that point. Fertility benefits are gone. Effective midnight, everything cuts off. Mm-hmm. So,
which is crazy.
Yeah. But then the question was, okay, what is my next step? That was my first thing. I had a couple first things, actually. The first thing that I said out of my mouth was, all right, God, you got it. Let's see what you do. The second thing was my fertility benefits. How am I going to do this? But I also knew how I was going to do it because God always come through. So no matter what I think, no matter how he always comes through. And so I went through that period of trying to understand that. Now, here's how important timing is. I could not financially afford paying, like we as a married couple could not physically and financially afford to pay for all of these meds that I'm about to show you. We couldn't really afford to pay for the doctor's business and all of that at the time that I was let go and I had to leave from my previous job. Now, the interesting part about it was getting to a point where I had to leave and it was just time to go, it took me 8 weeks to find where I am now in my current contract. So Shout out to the company because they're great. So it took me 8 weeks to the day that I had to go for me to find where I am now. What I didn't know was the contract that I was on also came with fertility benefits. So here's how God works. Okay, I am covered currently under Cigna Health. If those of you who have Cigna Health, if you want to go through a fertility journey and you don't know what your benefits are, please take a break from this video, go to Cigna's website and go look at the fertility benefits that they offer. At the same time that I was transitioning to my contract role, husband was transitioning to where he is now. Mm-hmm. Even if I didn't have my fertility benefits from Cigna, he had fertility benefits through Surest. So either way, I was going to be able to be okay with the fertility part and going through this process and not necessarily breaking our pockets. Now, the interesting part about all of this is, even though you have fertility benefits, depending on the type of fertility benefits you have, you still have to come out of pocket for something.
Oh, yeah.
So here is the breakdown. Okay, you ready? All right. So I found out that right after I curated my first TED Talk, which was on September 13th of 2025, that I was going to start my first round of IVF literally a week after that. So that meant I had to have my baseline pay. The baseline pay, let me get low. The baseline pay for this was $3,300 every time I went through a round of IVF. The $3,300 through the Duke healthcare system paid for every single doctor visit that I had to grow my follicles after taking all of these meds, growing my follicles, plus doing my egg retrieval. Now, the $3,300 baseline pay for all of the doctor's visits that you're going to have does not cover all of this. Okay? Let's be very clear. It doesn't cover all of this. So, $3,300 baseline pay plus another $3,700 for the actual meds themselves. Now, the price is going to depend on what you need. So, the first thing I needed was medicine called Gonal. This is Gonal. So, for those of you who need to understand kind of research, this was Gonal. Gonal was my favorite because Gonal didn't hurt. Now, Gonal looks like an EpiPen. So, for those of you who are used to using EpiPens, it's an EpiPen. So, Terrence is going to come up close to show you what it looks like. Now, the importance of Gonal is, can you open it and see if the needle is in it? I don't think it is. It's not. So, but that's what Gonal looks like. There's a small needle, which looks like this. There's a small needle that you hook on the end of EpiPen. So it kind of looks like that. So that small needle, I couldn't feel anything. I had to do 300 milliliters. I had to do 300 milliliters every night for about 7 days, 6 or 7 days. So that was one night, right? This is all in one night. So that's Gonal. That in this one. Okay. After Gonal, we go to the medicine I hated. Let's use this box. Menopur. Okay, this is Menopur. Menopur I didn't like because Menopur stung. It didn't hurt being injected in terms of the needle, but the medicine itself stung. So I had to take this vial, and there's another vial that I had to take, but it's 2 vials. It's this vial and it's another vial that looks exactly like this, it's just a different color. I had to mix this, and I had to do 2 of these shots in the same night. So it ended up being 3 shots a night. Now, depending on how many eggs I was able to grow in my follicles and all those things, it would depend on how much medicine I was on. So my first round was Gonal, and Menopur, right? That was the Menopur Menopar needle. So Gonal and Menopar. All right. The second round was still Gonal and Menopar. And even no matter the rounds I was in, by the time you get to a certain point, I had to add Overdrill. And Overdrill was more of, I don't think this was a trigger shot, but there is a shot that you have to take that at a certain point is going to help you consistently measure your follicles and all the things. But there is a trigger shot. I think Overdrill might be the trigger shot. I can't remember. But I had to also take Overdrill. So the first and second rounds were pretty consistent in how much medicine I had to take. The third round was a little much. The third round, I ended up taking, first and second rounds were 3 needles a day. If I had to go to the doctor, I had to get injected. Or I had to get labs done. So that meant I had another needle. So if I had a doctor's appointment in the same day that I had to do my injections, I ended up having 4 needles a day, which is a lot. I ain't going to say it ain't, because it is. It was a lot. By the third round, I had to take 4 needles a day. So I still had to do the Gonal, the Menopar, and then I don't have any more of it. But there was another one that I ended up having to take that I had to do in the morning. I had to do at 6 o'clock every morning, between 6 and 10 every morning. And so that ended up being 3 needles plus another progesterone. That's not that one.
That's close. It's some kind of same bottle.
But it's similar to, the bottle is similar to this. This is a different medicine that I had to take, but it's similar to this. Mm-hmm. So of all of these rounds, and here's where the scary part comes in, because I don't think people fully get that IVF, it's emotional because you don't know what's going to happen. You can take all of this medicine that you see in front of me, and it still may not be enough. So I took all of these syringes that are in here are all used. So those syringes, the Gonal that's sitting right here, this bin, because they give you a bin, these bins are also filled with all of the injections that I had to do. So the hard part about doing all of these injections is...
You got 2 more of these bins in the garage.
And I do have 2 more. But the hard part about doing these injections is you don't know how many eggs you're going to be able to retrieve from your follicles. So the first round of IVF, we retrieved 15 eggs, which is pretty good. By day 2, my 15 went down to 9. Mm-hmm. By day 6, my 9 went down to 3. And they said, we'll give it 1 more day, but normally by day 6, you're pretty done. Mm-hmm. So, but we'll give it 1 more day just to see what happened. I still had 3. Then you send it off for genetic testing, which was another $400 mm-hmm. that you have to spend. So you have $3,300 for the baseline, plus another $3,700 for the medicine, plus $400 for the genetic testing mm-hmm. that you have to wait another 2 weeks. So a lot of this is patience and waiting and praying and come on, God, please let this work and all the things, which is why people who go through IVF, once they become pregnant, there is a level of protection that other people will never understand. It's the same. That's why I said in a post before that it's something similar to a mom who has a miscarriage or who had multiple miscarriages, and by the time they're about to have their rainbow baby, they get extremely protective. It's something similar to that. So you wait 2 weeks for genetic testing. Even though I had 3 good eggs, so to speak, you don't know if those good eggs, by the time you come back from genetic testing, you don't know if those eggs are good quality eggs yet. They're just the ones that made it through the maturity process of the 6-day process after they're retrieved from your body. After round 1, I went from 3 eggs to 1. So of 15 eggs, I went all the way down to 1. So 14 of them were not normal, so to speak. Now, round 2. Round 2 happened in December of 2025. This is at this point, September and December for rounds 1 and 2. I'm in a better headspace, better work environment. This is much easier to maintain. Mm-hmm. And this is also around Christmas time. So December, we went in again. We did all the medicine, went and retrieved some eggs. This time, we retrieved 9 eggs, which was disappointing. So we retrieved 9 eggs. And by day 2, we went down to 2. By day 6, I still had 2. By day 7, I still had 2. We sent it off to genetic testing. Again, round 2, which meant I had to pay for another baseline, another $3,300, more medicine, another $3,700, and genetic testing, another $400. So every single round, I had to keep paying thousands of dollars. Excuse me, we had to keep paying thousands of dollars. So after genetic testing, which is another 2 weeks of waiting, come back, Christmas Eve, they give me a Christmas gift. The doctor says, okay, you got 1 good egg. I said, I'll take it. I was like, I'll take it. You got 1 good egg, and the other egg is considered mosaic, which means it's 50-50. It could be good or bad. So we're going to store both of those eggs. We're going to freeze them. Do you want to do a round 3? And here's where you come in. So
round 3, I was on the defense about it because seeing her being put under, it does something to you, especially as a supporting spouse, and there's also consequences behind that too. So I didn't want to see her be put under again for the 3rd time because I was scared of the what if, right? I was okay with what we had, but I knew in her heart that she really wanted to go through a 3rd round. So we talked about it. I prayed about it, and I was like, okay, if you want to do this, I trust God. I trust His plan. I believe in this journey we're on. So let's go ahead and do it.
Now, I'm glad he prayed because the Lord had told me already that I had to do a 3rd round. So the thing about my spiritual gifts is I can actually hear the audible voice of God. And during my second round, I was in the kitchen. I think I was in here, and God was like, Shanae, you're going to have to do a 3rd round. I was like, cool. And so when I told Terrence, he still wasn't thrilled about it. And I was like, well, God already told me that I was going to have to do a 3rd round. But it didn't mean that I didn't need to check with him. I absolutely needed to check with my husband. And we talked through it, had to convince him. So I'm glad the big dude, the big T got on board. And we ended up scheduling the 3rd round. Now, here's how this happened. My doctor called me, and she was like, how are you feeling? And I was like, well, I'm disappointed, but I also know that I have 2 good eggs. I have 2 good embryos. I could have none. Mm-hmm. So I was happy with having 2 good embryos. Yeah. And she was like, I'm just so disappointed for you. I was so excited that, you would have better quality eggs in the 1st round and all the things. So she was like, what do you want to do? I said, well, Terrence doesn't like it, but we're going to do a round 3. She's like, okay, let's do it. And so she said, I wish that, other people who are going through this journey had your attitude. I said, trust me, this attitude did not come overnight. So this wasn't a thing where I had to get here. This was not a happy-go-lucky type of attitude. Trust me, even through the process, I was not happy at all. And anyway, I showed y'all that I was faithful and happy, but I was not happy. And anyway, I was faithful, but I was not happy all the time. So round 3 comes in January 2026. Round 3 comes. And so we do this again. $3,300, $3,700, $400, right? Baseline, medicine, genetic testing. The 3rd round, we retrieved 13 eggs, and 6 made it to day 2. So I just took a deep breath, and I was just like, Lord, and me and God had a very honest conversation. I was like, there is no way you're going to bring me this far to disappoint me like this. Like, there is no way. Like, there is no way. You made a promise to me. There's no way. And so 13 eggs went down to 6 in day 2. And by day 6, I was at 1. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, come on, Faith. I was like the lady from Wilson Phillips, Holy Spirit, activate. Like, I was very like, come on, Lord, activate. So we went down to 1. And by faith, I was like, all right, send it off to genetic testing. I didn't, because you don't have to go do genetic testing if you don't want to. It's optional, but I try to trust the process, and I also am not a fan of rushing God, so I was just like, go ahead and send it. And my doctor is funny because she always pauses before she gives me the news, so I'm holding my breath, and she was like, and she took a deep breath. She was like, your egg is good. And I was like, come on. Like, so it was funny, but at the same time, it was just like, say it. So we ended up with 3 good embryos, which made me feel a lot better going into my transfer. So the next step was she asked me, how did I want to do the transfer? Did I want to take oral medicine and let it happen naturally, and whoever was on duty that day, they would do my transfer? Or did we want to manipulate my hormones and my ovulation so that she can do the transfer? Throughout this entire process, Dr. Mustafa had not done any of my procedures. This was the moment that I wanted her to do my procedure. So I elected to do the manipulation. So now Terrence is not in on any of these conversations. I have not consulted with my husband in this process. He has gone at this point. So I was like, all right, let's go ahead and manipulate it so you can do it. Because I genuinely wanted my fertility doctor to do one of my procedures. So we manipulated it. In the manipulation, I forgot which medicine I had to take. But I had so many medicines. But it was one of the medicines that I had to take that, I forgot which one it was. But I had to do some injections and take a pill. Like, I had to make sure that we were on point with my hormones and all the things in ovulation. March 30th, 31st? Whatever the last Monday was in March, I think it was the 30th. March 30th. So March 30th of 2026 is when we did our transfer. And Aunt Portia came. Shout out to Aunt Portia. So Aunt Portia came. Go ahead.
So before the transfer, you missed the needle part about using this medicine here.
No, progesterone was after.
I thought that was before the transfer.
No, it was after. Trust me.
Huh.
Because it's after you find out if you're actually pregnant, you have to do big long needles. Oh. So I'm getting there. Oh. He's ahead of me. So we did. So March 30th, 2025, at 11 a.m. 2026. Sorry, 11 a.m. We did my first transfer, and so she showed us how it happens, and it was so cool, like, to lay on the table. Husband and aunt is there. She had to call for the embryo because it was frozen. Yeah. It was unfrozen, but it was still being refrigerated. Yeah. She had to call for the embryo, and she called. I don't have my the top that they gave me. It's upstairs.
But even before then, so they told us the embryo has to survive the unthaw. Yeah.
So it's a lot of faith in this process. So the doctor will tell you, or the nurse will tell you, the embryo has to survive the unthaw. And I was like, what? I was like, what? So embryo has to survive the unthaw, but they will unthaw 2 embryos just in case one doesn't survive. And I was like, okay. So embryo survived the unthaw, and it was a very beautiful embryo. It was can you go get it? Yeah. Get the picture and the top. Okay. It should be on the dresser. Okay. We'll be back. This is a commercial. If I had a brand deal, I would, show some of the stuff in my kitchen. I got a ton of stuff in here. All the brands, Kellogg, Peter Pan for peanut butter, Pearl Mining Company for syrup, also known as Aunt Jemima. Okay, all the things. I got a ton. If y'all want to, brands, Dawn, we use that for the dishes. So, just saying, any brand deal, olive oil, Pam, we got Pam. So, any brand deals out there, your brands, I'm available. Just FYI.
Sorry, and not only in apparel,
melanin apparel because husband wears melanin apparel quite often. Okay. So, thank you, baby. So, this is the container. That's a container that, and it's a little dusty, so if you see dust, pay no mind. That's a container that the embryo was in. And this is the picture that they show you before they transfer the embryo. That's what the embryo actually looks like. So the scary part about all of this, and I'm not gonna be the one to tell you it ain't scary. I'm faithful. I love the Lord. It's still scary. Let's be very clear. We're human. It's still scary. So they give you the top because it says Urquhart on it. They give you the picture. After you do the embryo transfer, she said, she talked me through it. She said, you're going to fill a probe. The probe is going to go up you. And then I'm going to put the embryo in and you're going to see a poof. And when the screen goes poof, you'll see the embryo bubble pop up. And she said, 1, 2, 3. And it went poof. And literally the screen just flashed and the embryo popped up. And this is what we saw. So that's the embryo. That's what the embryo looks like. Okay. So the thing about this waiting part, there's about a 7-8 day waiting period. How long was mine? 9 days. Mine was 9 days. There's a 9-day period, although I told my husband it was a month, so I could surprise him. So all the doctors were in on it, the nurses were in on it. It was great.
Loyalty.
It was great. So although this was beautiful, the hard part was I really hope my baby sticks. That was hard because having all of this is beautiful. Like having all of these things to take home with you, and all of that is absolutely amazing to have all of this stuff. But if your embryo doesn't stick, that's hard to look at when you can see your embryo, and if your baby doesn't stay in your uterus, that is hard. So that was probably, if anything, I think of the entire process, that part was the most nerve-wracking part for me. Mm-hmm. So on April 8th of 2026, we found out, well, I found out that I was pregnant. Terrence had to wait 4 more days because I had a whole surprise thing set up for him. But I found out on April 8th of 2026 that I was pregnant. Now, here's the best part about this. April 8th of 2025 is when I started my current contract in a better working environment and all those things. And exactly a year later, baby. So all of this was worth it. I want y'all to know it was worth it. Now, the part that sucked as well. Even though I was pregnant, I was not done with injections like I thought I was. One of my homegirls is also pregnant, also went through IVF, also did her transfer through. We had the same fertility doctor that did our transfer. She told me about this part that I didn't know. Husband hid the needles from me, so I couldn't see what was going to happen to me. So there is another needle. No, go ahead. There is another needle that I had to take. After you're pregnant, you have to wait. You have to take these needles every morning. Oh, you see how long that thing is? That thing long, bro.
Look at that John.
That thing is long.
Look at that John.
So you have to use that needle every morning until you hit 10 weeks. And the medicine is called progesterone. So that's progesterone. And I also had to take estrogen pills